Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Sunday night Reef Talk live stream, where today we are joined by a very special guest indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Ryan Marchant. Woo!
Woo!
It's just me, basically.
I'll clap myself.
Ryan, so for the three people who don't know who you are, and it's more likely to be fewer than three, I'll introduce you quickly. Okay. You are the UK's leading YouTuber in terms of saltwater aquariums, and you also run Prestige Reef, which is the UK's leading coral farm as well. And you set up your farm 2 years ago now?
Yeah, it'll be 2 years. Yeah,
2 years ago. So you are, you're one of the pioneers of UK online coral selling. And I might be overselling this. You're
definitely overselling this. There are definitely other people in the chat who will be listening, going, "That's not true."
Yeah. But no, I always like to that sort of stuff. But to be fair, so you set up a coral farm, and you were a hobbyist for years and years. 15 years, something like that?
Yeah, it's been 15 years now. Yeah,
15 years, and then after 10 or 12 years, you decided, let's go coral farming. So you're kind of living the dream, and now you've got a 4,000 litres of salt water, basically.
Correct. It wasn't in the last 3 years that I decided this. I actually decided, because I found my old notebook of ideas not long ago, probably about a month ago. I tried to find it again today to be able to show you. I started planning this when I was 18.
18.
So I knew, so I first got into the hobby when I was 18, and I thought, and sorry, I wasn't 18, I was 21, sorry. I'd rather correct myself. Yeah, I was 21 I'd been in the hobby for 3 years at that point, and that was when I found my notebook. I've got the ideas of what I would call the website and everything in there, all different names. I can't remember the other names now.
I just assumed this was like a recent thing that you just suddenly, 5 years ago, you were like, do you know what?
No, it was, when I was 21, I started planning. And then obviously the channel came a few years later than that, probably 4 years later than that. And then obviously whatever the time difference is between those 4 years and now. So it's been a work in progress for a while.
Long old while. Well, I'll tell you what, so we'll get stuck into that side of stuff in a sec. But I'll say hello to people who have joined in the chat. So we've got uploads by Tom is in the house. I'll come back to your question later, Tom. Trevor Rhodes could even see Alex's wallet. Yeah, this is why Ryan has come on basically to sell stuff to me. So we've got Reef Rookie in the house. Some guy called Prestige Reef who thinks he should probably turn up. Braveheart Reef for 525. Quack to Blue is here. Bubbly Reef YouTube member is here. Medic to Med Student is here. Sean Parrish, Matt Flood, UKM120, Jacob Motlock, Tony Marsh, Will M, Ryan's Reef, Les the moderator, Jamie's Reef, LG Autocare, Scott McMillan, Mr. Man, Andy the opinionated reefer, Aquarian who says, "What's up, YouTube?" And he's drinking Ouzo, which is that's strong stuff. That is. Scott McAndrew, Fish Legend. There's too many here, Ryan. This is your star power bringing everybody in. We've got.
I can't actually see how many people are actually in.
There's currently 120, which is reasonable going for the start. It normally gets a little bit busier, sort of 5 minutes in. But yeah, there's quite a few people in. But what I'm going to do then is we'll talk about your farm and all that sort of stuff in a sec. But there were some member questions. So Reef Talk YouTube member questions that I asked people to post beforehand. And you're nervous about this because I refused to tell you what they were beforehand.
Yeah, so 5 minutes before, Alex and I had a chat before the camera turned on, and I asked him what the questions were, and he wouldn't tell me, and that's what made me nervous.
But unfortunately, they're not all stinging questions that would be hilarious. But we've got Bubbly Reef says, "Yay, exciting! Can't wait. The banter is going to be unreal."
I'll try my best.
And we've got a question that I know you'll like from Push Button Reef. Will you be doing a podcast with Ryan?
That's what this is, isn't it?
Well, kind of. I think he means a weekly one every week where we commit 2 hours and talk. And
I'm going to try my best to not be invited back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you were saying earlier you're just going to try and swear, and you've got some art in the background.
There's casual nudity, because then Alex gets demonetized, and then I'm not allowed back. So
exactly. And then we've got some actual questions. So Push Button Reef also says he had a power cut this week. Can you give me any wisdom on what can be done when this happens? I'm guessing you need need a UPS on flowing heat. So you've had this before, right?
Yes, I have. Yeah. The last video I did actually covered this, but every single tank should have some sort of battery backup on it, because at some point in time, no matter how, so it can happen today, it can happen in 20 years, but at some point in time, you will come across a power cut. And the only thing that you really need to worry about with a power cut, unless it's a really, really long one, is about keeping oxygen in the tank. So the battery backup should be on a power head, just to keep the flow going, so the fish can keep breathing. But heat is not usually a big issue, not here anyway, because the power cuts are rarely more than like an hour.
That's the thing. So in the UK, we had a power cut. There was a planned power cut in my village last year where they were doing some work, so it was out for the day, but I knew in advance, and that was, I don't know, 6 hours. But normally we don't really get long power cuts. It's normally, like you say, an hour or so it's not really that big a deal. And to be honest, I think most tanks would be okay for an hour. But yeah, like the Vortec battery backups, I've got one of those, and they're easy. They last for ages. I've not tested how long it lasts, but mine lasted for hours on end.
Yeah, and obviously they kick in automatically, which is the main thing, because it's nice having a battery powered pump, but it's not that effective if half the time you're asleep, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, exactly.
It does really need to kick in automatically.
I had a generator for that day when we had the planned power cut. But if that happened when I didn't know, what's the point if I'm at work?
I was incredibly lucky once. So one year I was in Australia, and there was a power cut here in the village I live in. Not luckily it wasn't my house, but just literally probably like 30 seconds drive down the road. The power cut lasted for 4 days in the middle of winter. God. Yes, it was crazy. It was over the Christmas period. It was probably 7 years ago or something like that now. And I just thought to myself, if that had happened to me while I was in Australia, and I had that, obviously at the time I had a 1,000-litre tank, there wasn't a lot that the people looking after the tank would have been able to do.
Yeah, God. And so, December as well, it would have been freezing cold so.
Yeah. So it's like having an insurance policy. You don't want to buy it because it feels like a waste of money, but when you need it, it is the best money you ever spent.
Exactly. And so the Vortec ones, they're about 150, 180, something like that. They are quite expensive because it's just a battery and a couple of wires basically, but they're well worth it. And they're one of the things that I wouldn't want to have a tank without, although actually I've got a tank up here without one, but but there we go.
Naughty.
I know, but I don't have any Ecotech stuff on this tank.
The Coral Farm has probably 12 battery backups on it, I think. No, maybe not 12. I think maybe 8. But there's a lot. They're in the roof, so I never see them.
Right. Oh yeah, because you had someone do your unique wiring.
Well, it wasn't unique. I just couldn't have 70 plug sockets on the walls.
Yeah,
It would look a bit odd.
All right, we've got more questions as well. We've got a few more member questions. Push Button Reef says, I'm so impressed with what you do at Prestige Reef. I wonder how you make ends meet when so much of your business depends on coral growth and patience. And this follows on to another one where James says, you took a big risk starting the farm as your full-time job. Were there any moments when you thought it wasn't going to work out? And do you have any advice for someone who's starting a farm? So how hard was it starting? And because you were talking to me earlier about the hard point is the summer. So what's it like? What's the reality of a coral farm?
So I was very lucky where I was doing both my job and I was selling corals and going from my job at lunchtime to ship corals. So it wasn't like I quit my job and then just started. I was doing it for a period of time. And then once I realized that it was becoming too much, I was getting back late from lunch, sometimes by like an hour. That was when I had to leave. And I will be honest, the company that I was working for was actually my father's company. So it wasn't like it wasn't as a big a risk as most people would take if they were going to go into this situation, because if it didn't work out, I was always going to be welcome back.
Yeah.
So I'd rather just be honest with you and just say, look, although it seems like a brave thing to do, it wasn't. From my perspective, I was very lucky. With regards to making ends meet, as I said to Alex earlier, when we had a little chat, it's very different when you're just trying to make a little bit of money to cover the cost of your coral frags that you're buying from the shop, or I used to call it guilt-free spending. So I would frag corals, sell them, and then keep that money separate from my bank account, and then I would go and spend that specifically just on corals or fish, because then if I wanted to buy a gem tang or something that was ridiculously expensive, I would never spend my own money on that. But the guilt-free spending money, it didn't hurt as much. But going back, so the first time that I was concerned about doing this in the whole time is actually right now, which is interesting because I've actually been very lucky. I've had the best month since I started this month. But with the cost of electricity increasing, which is my electricity bill is now £780 or something like that, which is yeah. Okay. It's not a small increase.
No.
And also the fact that I now I charge VAT as well now, so the cost of corals hasn't increased. I've just taken less money, if you see what I mean. I couldn't increase the cost. It's just so the corals have stayed the same price. So it is probably will be harder going forward, as I've only just done that, because the government's taking their starting to take their share now. But it's the summer is always. Sorry, this was the point I wanted to make. So growing the coral is the easy part if you want to have a coral farm. Selling the coral to enough people is when it's difficult, because when you're trying to sell just a few frags from your tank, it's fine. When you're trying to sell hundreds of frags every month, you need to have a wide audience or a wide way of getting rid of that. And even local shops will only take so much. I've always said if I didn't have the channel, I wouldn't be able to do this. And I really believe that as a fact. So then again, other people are obviously doing it. So it is in theory possible.
But that's just because that's really because you get so much. It's free publicity, isn't it? Basically.
Yes. Yeah. So every time I post on Instagram, it gets it's usually about 200 or 300 people on the website every single day. A normal website wouldn't have that luxury.
Yeah.
And every video that I put out, because the link is at the start of each video, and that video is there forever now. It's not like I get. It's like I get free advertising forever. If you see what I mean.
Yeah. Okay. And you built up like a brand effectively, didn't you? Because you had your channel, and so people know you. People knew like what you were you've been talking about stuff, fish and corals, so they know you. They want to buy from you, and you've always said to me before, people buy from people.
Yes,
and it's
that's correct.
Actually just being a nice person gets you a long way.
I'm not sure on that, but it's more of that. So in the UK, buying corals online wasn't as big as it was in America, or it is in America. Even now, it's not. So the people that are buying from me, they are potentially they think that they're taking a risk. Now, no one has ever, as far as I know, no one has ever lost out. So if a coral has died or whatever in transit, it's always replaced. I have a policy. People are going to abuse this policy now that people know this. But if something dies, it gets replaced, or I'll give them a refund immediately. There's no questions, because it makes people feel comfortable. Now, because people can literally see what I do, and they see regularly me dipping the corals, and they can they'll see the corals on my Instagram. Let's say I got some acans yesterday. No, you say day before yesterday. Now, if those corals they know what day those corals came in, if you see what I mean. So some of the acans I've got in the coral farm, they've been there for over a year. And if you can literally look back through my Instagram and see what date that exact coral came in. So it's not like they're getting shipped out straight away, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, I like that transparency as well, because a lot of the time, any place that sells corals online, whether it's a local shop or an online seller, you'll see the photo of the individual coral, but you show kind of inadvertently all the behind the scenes stuff, and every time you do a video, you can see every coral in the background, and often like corals. But so you talked earlier about growing corals is the easy part. That feels weird for a lot of people who think that the hobby is really difficult. But you've got corals growing everywhere, so
yes,
why is
that's
what are you
my
doing?
problem.
Yeah.
It's it's the hobby is not as difficult as it used to be. And again, this is something we discussed earlier. Again, I think that hobbyists like to tell people that it's difficult because it makes them feel good because the other person doesn't know how difficult it is. But the reality is we are potentially keeping other hobbyists out of the hobby by telling people it's difficult. One of my most successful videos, I think it's got sort of 700,000 views now, is keeping a saltwater tank is easy. And it's because people want to be told that it's easy. And 20 years ago, it was hard, but it's not as hard as it used to be, if you see what I mean. There are some very basic things that if you follow those, you can easily keep a soft coral tank without any question at all.
For sure. Basics. It's the basics. Is people often, when you start looking into the hobby, when I started looking at it, you're thinking, oh God, I've got to look at trace elements, and there's like a million of these weird things, and I've got to get the spectrum spot on, and I need to make sure I'm getting the exact right power head and all this stuff. But actually, it's actually quite simple.
Yeah, it is.
Just a few basics that you need to look after, and everything else takes care of itself.
Yeah, like whatever light you buy of a reasonable standard. If other people are using that light as a success, and you match that your lighting schedule to their lighting schedule, that's one of the key components, which is out now. So you know that your lighting is correct in theory if other people are running it like that. And then obviously there's flow, which is again it is difficult to get right, but it's also not that hard to get the basics right, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? It's like
it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, and you don't have to spend thousands of pounds. You just need a couple of power heads, roughly pointing in the right direction, not blasting at the corals, and then they'll be all right.
And if you want Xenia, you don't need any of this.
Xenia, yeah. It's funny. So I did a video recently about Tropic Thunder Monty that basically is taking over my tank.
I've got some of it from you.
I know, yeah.
Taking over my tank.
Exactly. But it's that. So I was looking today, and it's proper. It's killed half of one of my acro colonies, which is surviving just about. But it's a really nasty coral. And in that video, I was talking about how I hate it, and I'd never put it back in again, which I wouldn't. And it's taken over my tank, and it's really difficult to remove and all of this. And all I got was comments saying, can I buy some of that Tropic Thunder off you, Alex?
Yeah.
And you do the same with Xenia.
I do. And Xenia is one of the things that I sell more Xenia than acros, for example. People love Xenia, and it doesn't matter how many times I tell people don't buy it, they still want it. And if they want to buy it and they know the risks, they can have it.
But it's an awesome coral. It's particularly as a beginner, because it's relatively easy. Although it can be a bit fussy sometimes, but it's relatively easy, and it just looks amazing. And just the fact that it just sits there and doing that all day long, it's wicked.
I've only ever found it difficult in very low nutrient tanks.
Right. Okay.
If it's a low like an ultra low nutrient tank, it doesn't do very well for what I assume it needs higher levels. I assume. But basically anywhere else, we're all good.
Fair enough. Well, there's a couple of questions or comments that have been posting up that I wanted to do. So let's have a look at this. First off, it's Permanent Marker Boy and Wallpaper Man.
Well, that's why I put these behind me, or that's why I sat here in the house, because everyone comments on your wallpaper. So I thought I'd give them something else to look at.
Exactly. But you still get comments about your permanent marker, don't you?
Yes, and that's actually why I've left it there, because the more people that comment on the videos, the better it is for us, isn't it? Because YouTube sees that as engagement. So it's part because of that and part because of laziness. But yes, it's still there.
Maybe I should put some permanent marker on my wallpaper as well. Double up.
It would probably improve it.
Yeah. And there was another one as well that I I saw. Let me just see if I can find it. It made me laugh as well. Oh yeah, here we go. It was a drinking game that LG Auto Care wanted to play. Anyone else playing the drinking game? Every time the word Palytotoxin is mentioned, drink.
Yes,
But then it says, on a serious note, hope you're okay from it, Ryan.
Yeah, I'm okay now. You know, it was a rough ride, as you saw.
Yeah, well, so not everybody will know, but you got Palytoxin off Zoas, didn't you? Basically, so what happened?
That was Paligrandis. Well, I was fragging Zoas and Paligrandis, and I believe it was the Paligrandis that did it because they're the ones that are known for being terrible. And it was my own fault, if I'm honest.
Because you attacked them with a bandsaw.
I mean, look, sure. Like, if you want to say it like that, there's usually if I frag, what I do when I'm fragging corals, especially if I'm fragging zoas, is I will frag a whole range of other corals, and then at the very end I will do a very small selection of zoas because it limits your exposure. Whereas that day I thought I just went, you know what, I'm just gonna do it all day, and it was not all day, like for a few hours, and it was a bad idea. And I really was quite worried.
Yeah.
Like it was the involuntary movements that I didn't like of your arms, of just like twitching.
So you just like twitching and
yeah, and also that you could literally feel. It was like you're like electric running down your arms. So yeah,
that's so weird. Well, because you were like short of breath, weren't you? What else happened? What were the symptoms?
It was shortness of breath was one of them. I think it started with a headache and a sore throat. They changed gradually over a period of time. I just remembered I was messaging you, wasn't I? While this was going on,
trying to tell you to go to the hospital, and you were like, "No, it's fine."
Yeah, you were telling me to go to the hospital.
Don't want to trouble anyone.
At 2 a.m. when I was sweating and throwing up, I was like, probably should have listened to him. So,
but you were fine, so it paid off. So
yeah, I mean, I would have only wasted the hospital's time. But you probably still got that message that says if anything happens to me, then you get first pick of all the corals.
There we go. Yeah, I'd have just been like the next day, no morning. I'd have just been breaking into the garage and just like. But you bought a load of my corals actually. Oh no, a year ago or something, didn't you? Have you still got any of them?
Yeah, of course. Like so, all the corals I have, are so I like to keep pieces. So some of them I'll keep a colony, and I'll do frags off the colony. But that's generally not what I'll do. I like to keep 1 or 2 pieces for myself, and then I will frag off those pieces going forward. Yeah. Because it's nice and it looks pretty having a big colony, but the reality is they take up a huge amount of room. And in my experience, it's far better especially with things that grow very fast like Sophastria. Just to let it grow over a frag plug, divide that frag plug into 4, and start 4 new frags from that. So I like to keep a consistent level of. It's like a constantly moving target, if you see what I mean. As corals go down, you then have to frag a certain amount, so they grow quickly enough so that they're ready to sell the next time, but not too quickly because then they grow onto the rack, and that causes a
okay. But one of the corals that you got was I had this massive colony of it was sold to me as Jason Kryptonite. Yeah, that's it. But it was just I think it's a Miyagi taught, maybe. Don't know what it is. But in my tank, and when I got it as a frag, and I'd had it for maybe 2 years, my tank it was always mostly blue with a bit of cream. And then when it went to your tank, it just and that was for 2 years. Got it brand new in the shop, Got it in the shop, tiny. It was blue. Kept it for 2 years in the tank, grew out massive, and then within a couple of months, it had gone like mostly green, hadn't it?
I think it might have been less than a couple of months, if I was honest.
Really?
And I don't know. To this day, I don't know which color it's meant to be. Because I think that your lights, your power on your tank is much higher than what I run the SPS tank as.
Right. Okay. What sort of power do you run at?
It's between 350 and 450, whereas I think your power was like 6 or something, wasn't it?
Oh well, so I think mine's probably similar to yours because when I set up my new lights, I used the Senai and it was coming in at like 700 on the sound bed.
Yeah, that's what I remember.
I think that was wrong, but I think it was. But anyway, yeah. So maybe it was light, maybe it was nutrients. Who knows?
Yeah, that would be the only other thing that I could think it would be the nutrients.
I was going to ask you about colouring up corals because one of the things. So I've been to your farm twice, maybe Twice.
Maybe twice, I think.
Twice. And the thing that struck me was how good the colours were. Like they were just amazing. And there was one I bought, the dragon fruit cyphastra I bought from you that I'd seen on the website, and I was like, yeah, looks okay. And then like I saw it and I was like, what is that? And it's just it's amazing. So and your colours look awesome. So what are you doing? What's your secret sauce? What potions are you pouring in, Ryan?
There is no secret. I do water changes regularly. It's basically it's always once a week. Sometimes it's twice a week. On top of all the water that's coming out, because obviously every time I ship corals, water goes with them. So if someone buys 6 corals, 600 milliliters of water goes out. Which when you're shipping 100 corals, a lot comes out in one go. If you see what I mean. But do you do water changes on like every week, or do you just do it effectively as you go selling corals? So I do it when I'm selling the corals, but I also if I'm taking a lot out, then I'll put salt water back in. If I'm just doing maybe like 2 or 3 boxes, I'll just let the RO, because obviously it's 4,000 liters or it's 2,500 and 1,500, 2 different systems. So I just let the RO water go in to top up that replacement, because when you're dosing, obviously the salinity increases, so it counteracts that salinity.
Okay.
And salinity is interestingly that parameter has caused me more trouble than all the other parameters in the systems, because
you're constantly taking corals out. Or?
It is that, but also testing salinity is not that accurate.
Have you not got a salinity probe on your GHL?
Yes, but you have to calibrate it constantly.
Yeah. Okay.
So I had a salinity probe, which I like one of the handheld ones, which I thought was correct and was measuring it and calibrating it to a solution. But every time you open the solution, some of it evaporates, which then changes the concentration of the solution, which you're calibrating it to. So I found once that my tanks was like 1.028 when they're usually 1.025 or 26.
Okay.
That was a long time ago. I've got a Hannah checker now, and they have little sachets, so you can calibrate it like every time you want to use it, you can calibrate it. But I have, I think, four different methods to test salinity, and they all come out different. So what's right?
Yeah, that's the worst thing in the world in the hobby is when you test with 2 different things and you get 2 different results. It's like, which do I trust? But to be fair, as long as it's with salinity, as long as it's more or less okay. Do you tend to use a refractometer? Is there one that you trust more than the others?
The Hannah check is the one I trust more than everything else. But that's reasonably new. I've got the Red Sea refractometer. Obviously so I know that currently there is a discrepancy between the GHL and the Hannah checker, and that's because I haven't calibrated the probe for a month. So, and I personally, I think they need to be done more than a month, more regularly, if you see what I mean. Yeah.
So I've got a salinity probe. It's a Reef factory one, and I calibrated it when I first put it in a couple of times. I've maybe had it a few months now, and I haven't calibrated it since, and it's still, as far as I'm aware, it's right.
Well, next time I come see you, I'll bring the Hannah checker, and I bet you it's different.
I've got a Hannah checker. The trouble is the Hannah checker I don't trust unless I've just calibrated it, because I find it loses calibration quite quickly in a couple of weeks. So you've got to, if you calibrate it, then it's spot on. But otherwise, I don't like it.
But is your salinity probe not covered in algae and all grime and?
No, so I keep it away from my my refugium, and it's in relatively high flow for a sump, but not really. But it's although weirdly, so I got a notification yesterday when I was out saying salinity too low, and then 2 minutes later it was back up to normal. It went from 34.5 to 34.0 and then back up, and it's like there's no way the salinity changed. So that's obviously something with the probe just going. So yeah.
And you trust that more?
Well, I don't trust it, but I know my salinity is right, because whenever I test it every 6 months or so, it's about where I want it. So
it's probably, as I said, it's because obviously I'm dosing a huge amount because they're such big systems. So I have to dose a lot, and when you dose things, it increases salinity. And it's partly because obviously I'm constantly taking water out, and so my systems would be less stable than yours, because you might take water out periodically, whereas mine's coming out every single day. And sometimes it's RO water going in, and sometimes it's salt water going in.
Do you know, I always wondered how shops coped with salinity changes, because they're just putting out water from their fish systems all day long. And I went to a shop first thing one day, and they were pouring in gallons and gallons of salt water. And it was like, overflowing their tanks basically. I was like, oh, of course, that makes sense.
So they put it in preemptively, and then by the end of the day, in theory, it should be the correct level. Yeah,
exactly. And one last thing on salinity. So this tank here, the Pico tank, I thought salinity was going to be 900 milliliters. The capacity is of that. I thought salinity wasn't going to be a problem because it's got a lid on, but it's already shot up from 1.025 to 1.030.
Yeah, but you've got something that will grow in literally the sink.
Well, exactly. Well, this is it. So, but that's why I started, because I got this Mahano anemone on a frag plug, and I've just put it in a little tub, and then someone suggested I buy one of these little tanks, and I was like, do you know what? Ryan's Aptasia was growing in basically freshwater sink with no temperature, iodine, coral dip, all this stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, so this must be all right.
Yeah, because of the bulkhead on that tank, there's always a small amount of water in it. And it is a mix of fresh and salt water. And once a fish jumped out of the tank, it was a wrasse jumped out of the tank. They've all got lids now.
Yeah.
And it landed in there. And so I don't know how long it was in there for, but it managed to survive in that water as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Because the salinity was like 1.015, wasn't it?
I can't remember, if I'm honest.
It was low. It was about that kind of level.
Yeah. I don't even remember showing. Did I check it? I don't remember.
You did. You tested it. But it's interesting that they can survive in... because that you would think that would shock them, especially because it was cold and all that. But I found clownfish on the floor before that have survived, and I know they probably weren't out for long. I walked in my house and I walked into the living room and he was on the floor. This was my first ever tank, and so it could have been there for half an hour for all I know. Probably only a couple of minutes, to be fair. But but they're quite tough actually.
It's almost like don't get me wrong. It does happen when. In my experience over obviously the 15 years, fish jump out more often when you're there than when you're not. And I think it's something, whether it's you're frightening them or even just walking, they can feel the walking, the tremors or whatever. I don't know what it is, but it's sometimes, before I had the lids, this is why obviously I spent thousands just on the lids to keep 20-pound wrasse in, but I did not want that on my mind anymore, if you see what I mean. It was ridiculous because I needed so many of them. I think there's like probably 50 wrasse in there. So if you can imagine 50 wrasse in all open tanks, you'll be finding them on the floor every single day.
Yeah.
So
I find on my tank I've got a load of Halichoeres wrasses, and they are the ones. I've got other wrasses as well, but the Halichoeres wrasses, they're the ones that jump all day long. And every time I get near the tank, they jump out and splash me. I'm sure they do it on purpose.
I know someone who's got a fox face that does that. You go near the tank,
really?
Out, yeah. Imagine a fox face jumping out.
Yeah. I'm trying to pick it up and avoid getting stung by its fins or whatever.
It's fine with the owner, but he told me that he said don't go near that tank because the guy's got 4 tanks, amazing tank. It's maybe 3 actually. They're like big tanks, all amazing. I've never seen anything like it. And he just said you can look at the other tanks, but don't go near that one because the fox face will jump out.
He'll jump out and spine you with his.
Yeah.
All right, a couple of questions coming in I wanted to raise as well. So, Opinionated Reefer says, how will the increase in energy costs affect the farm? The way things are going, there won't be an independent LFS left in Scotland anyway. So, electricity costs have gone up crazy in the UK, double maybe, maybe even more in the last 6 months. So, how's that affecting you?
Obviously, it is a significant increase. I think that it will definitely probably take out some shops. If anything like this ever happens, it's the same with obviously all the petrol prices and the fuel prices of the planes and everything. So basically, when the planes are flying, the freight cost goes up, and obviously the corals are on the planes, which means it's more expensive to get corals. So the reality is, the cost of things will go up. It's the same as everything. Cost of food's gone up, cost of fuel's gone up. The cost of corals will eventually have to go up, because that's the only way the shops will survive, and it's happening already. It happened during the pandemic when the reason that fish got so expensive was because there were less planes flying, so there was a less freight space. So the freight space which was available skyrocketed the cost. And then if you wanted fish on that, all of a sudden that box, which would have cost maybe like, I don't know, £150 to send, that same box now costs £400 to spend. If you those might not be the right prices.
But
And the only thing you can do is put that cost on the fish, and then that cost eventually goes to the consumer. So
because it's always been an expensive. Well, actually, no, it's not always been an expensive hobby, but it can be very expensive. But it feels like at the moment everything is getting more and more expensive, and people seem to be shutting down their tanks a little bit. And nano tanks seem to be a lot more popular because it's a bit cheaper to run, all that sort of stuff.
That's correct. Nano tanks have become a lot more popular recently. The only thing that I will say is a lot of people that weren't around before the pandemic didn't know how much a yellow tang used to cost. So the hobby has a reasonably high turnover of people, where people enter the hobby, they buy everything, then they sell everything, and then a new person takes on that because they buy it secondhand, and then they go to a shop. Now, because I spoke to one of the shops near me and just said, it's crazy how expensive everything's got. Are people still buying? Because like I remember when yellow tangs cost £25 when I first started, and now they're over 100 and something, aren't they?
At least.
So at one point they were like, wait, they were higher than that. The prices come down. But the owner of the shop basically said that the people that are really into the hobby, like people like me and you, they will swallow that cost. It's just the way it is. If you want to be in the hobby, you want to keep doing it, you've got to pay the cost. And the new people entering the hobby don't know any different. So they don't notice that a flame angel is now £200. It used to be 20. Or an Achilles is £600.
So it's the people in between who aren't, that you're not that into it or whatever, and you're like, oh, do you know what? This is the final straw, basically.
Well, those are the people that are shutting their tanks down now. So the fish that are being returned to fish shops, I've been told, are usually like a couple of clownfish and a chromis, and just like things where people have got them a cardinal and they put them in their tank, and they didn't really. It wasn't like 10 tangs. You see why I mean? It's the mid. There's someone who's sort of dabbling rather than properly going into it. But everyone has to start somewhere. I dabbled at first, and I'm sure you did.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. Just soft corals only to start with. But and Xenia, which was wicked. I love my Xenia.
I didn't keep any corals for a year because I was frightened.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I was quite frightened, but I'm very, very impatient, and I just can't resist stuff. So it was about 3 months, I think, I waited.
My first coral, which I was told was pink star polyps, which even I think on the website still is labeled as pink star polyps, was actually a Gorgonian.
Oh, right. Photosynthetic?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the guy just said, and I still am friends with that fish shop owner to this day. 15 years or 14 years later, I'm still friends with him.
So I talk about this all the time, about the community. People are so nice in this hobby. And you do meet people and you make friends. And like I go into my local fish shop every week and I'm chatting for about an hour just about stuff. And you just get to
you're one of those people that goes in and
I'm one of those people, exactly.
For an hour and doesn't buy it.
And but the thing is, I try to go in when it's quiet, but there are times when it's busy and I'm there chatting away and there's people behind going, mate, can I get a fish, please?
Yeah. I feel sorry for this is a public service announcement for all fish shop owners out there. They have seen your tanks. They have seen a million tanks in their life.
They don't
so when
care.
you go in and show them, and you say, "Look at this fish I bought from a different shop." They're not interested. They want you to buy that fish from their shop.
Yeah, this is very true. So I'm that person.
Oh, good. And definitely don't ever go into your local fish shop and say, "Look at this coral I bought from Ryan." So.
There's another question that caught my eye from Jay's Real Reef, which was, evening, Alex and Ryan. Is it becoming increasingly difficult to import corals to the UK?
It is so I don't import direct so I don't fill out all the CITES permits. I go through other companies which do that for me. The rate of which the availability to buy these boxes has significantly reduced. Before the pandemic, you could buy them every week. Then it became sort of every 2 weeks, and then I think it's almost like once a month now. And that's partly because we used to be able to buy corals from Australia, and I think some people still are getting corals from Australia. Just the people that I buy from weren't getting them.
Oh, okay.
But so they used to have once a month it was an Australia shipment, and then every 2 weeks would be Indonesia. So you could 3 weeks out of the month you could get new corals if you wanted. It isn't like that anymore. Not for me anyway. It might be like that for other people, but not for me.
And you buy from tank shutdowns from time to time.
Yes, yeah, quite often I buy from other people. It's just there's no reason for me not to, because if you think about it, when I get a box of coral, say from Indonesia, some of those corals will have been in that box for a very long time, at least probably over 24 hours, probably 48 hours. Sometimes they come and they burst the bags, so you've got a coral which is in half water. The salinity isn't always what it should be. The temperature isn't always what it should be. Sometimes they arrive and they're 16 degrees. So corals are much, and when you spend I got in trouble once because I mentioned how much I spend on the boxes of coral. So I'm not allowed to do that anymore because the wholesaler told me off.
Oh, I was going to say who in trouble with, right? Yeah, fair enough.
Yes.
A lot of money though, basically.
And to be fair, I didn't actually say the price of the box of coral. I said the higher the wholesale, not the wholesale cost, the cost I would sell the corals for.
Yeah.
I still got in trouble. So what was the question? I forgot what the question was.
So we were talking about tank shutdown. You buy tank shutdown. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's beneficial for me to go and pick corals up. It's more physically hard work because when you turn up to someone's house, they expect you to do it. Although when I was at your house, I expected you to do it.
Yeah. But it's a pain in the arse. So I see people shutting down tanks all the time, and people often overprice. I think anyway. What they want, because they'll go around and add up each coral. And they'll be like, right, this is worth X money. And then they want you to take the whole thing. It's actually taking an entire tank shutdown or even half your tank or whatever. That's a big burden. That's not that's not the dream, is it?
I'm basically taking your problem away. So people contact me quite regularly and say, well, look, we come get this. The corals are often, you never really know what you're gonna get. Someone's got Astorina starfish. I don't know who that might be. I'd never seen so many Astorina starfish.
Because you asked me, like, have you got any pests? And I was like, no, I don't think so. I was like, no Aptasia, no like Monty nudies or anything like that. And then you were like, is that Astorina? I was like, oh yeah, I've got millions of them.
Yes, millions. There was more Astorina starfish than sand in your tank.
And I didn't charge you for any of the Astorinas, did I?
No, true, but you bloody gave me loads of them. I remember dipping those corals, and there was just hundreds of them. There are pros and cons. The corals are generally more hardy.
Yeah, okay.
But when you get corals shipped to you, they come in these little nice packages, each of them individually packed, and they're all the size you want them to be. Whereas you saw the bit I got from you. Do you remember we put it in that box?
Yeah.
It just fit in that full-size poly box. It was like touching all the edges, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then I had to get home and go, what do I do with this?
Well, you had to break that whole thing down.
Yeah, it's just smashed
up. Taking you ages, yeah.
It just but so there are pros and cons to both. And also usually when you buy from people, it's usually more expensive. Because when you say to people, look, this is what I usually pay for corals, they're used to seeing shop prices, if you see what I mean, rather than wholesale.
Okay.
So their frag, which they paid £50 for, which is now growing into a colony. So they're going, well, this must be worth like £1,000 because it's now bigger. It doesn't work like that, if you see what I mean.
So I think I priced reasonably. Do you think I priced high? You can be completely open and honest.
No, I don't think. Okay, this is how it works. So with the Zoas that I got from you, it was very beneficial for me because you just wanted to get rid of them. There were loads of them, and I can make as much money as I want from that. So if I wanted to sell them as one piece and be lazy, I would make less money. Or if I want to frag them into each individual piece, then I can make a lot of money. If you see what I mean. So it works both ways. With the SPS corals, it was some of that was sentimental value, I think, for you. But I don't. I always look at it as a whole. So I got some Montipora from you. It was
crazy tea.
Crazy tea.
Something like
and I knew that if I fragged that up, that I could make basically the whole cost of all the corals from that big piece, and then whatever I made on anything else is fine.
That's really funny though, because I remember you said that when you came here, because you were looking at like what can I sell, and that was I'd factored that in, but I didn't think of that. I was like, you might get 100 quid for that or whatever, or So it was funny that was you. What I see was that I thought was really nice, and what you see that will sell is just totally different.
Yes, yeah. So the things like the Crazy Tea and Tropic Thunder Montipora, I'll sell loads of. Whereas Acropora still has a certain level of fear attached to it.
Yeah.
Even if it's an easier Acropora, it has a certain level of fear attached. So people, that's what I was saying. I sell loads of Xenia because no one's frightened of Xenia.
No.
Except me.
You should be.
Yeah.
Someone commented earlier, and I can't find it, but someone commented about any tips for keeping acros. Everything else in my tank is fine. Acropora difficult. And my immediate thought was, because I've thought about doing a video on keeping SPS or Acropora before, and every time I think about it, all I do is I watch the video from Coral Euphoria about how to keep SPS, and it's like, there's nothing I can say.
You can't do any better.
Above, exactly. It's like, watch that video, and that's. But what are your tips for Acropora? Because actually, my acros are pretty hardy, to be fair, and I don't find them as difficult as you'd think.
You are better at keeping acros than me. I thought about this even before we started. I'm always very honest. I like to tell people what I'm good at, what I'm bad at. I have loads of colonies of acros in there. But when I see your tank, it makes me go, wow! Like that is you saw my reaction when I was there.
Yeah.
It's. I mean, I don't know how you sleep at night half the time. But so honestly, you are, because I don't do anything different for the acros than I do for the rest of, because obviously the acros are in the same system as all the other SPS. Mm-hmm. So I have to have the same environment for the Montipora, although most of the Montipora in the bottom tank. That's purely because of a different lighting schedule. I don't have any sort of special thing, if you see what I mean. I can't give you any advice.
I think part of the reason that the acros do well in my tank is because my tank is set up for acros. Yeah. So I've got some acans that don't do well. I've tried to put them in shade, but nonetheless, they're not receded, but they're kind of half receded. They lose a lot of their color and they don't look great. But acros, my tank is set up a ton of light, a ton of flow, and so they love it. So I think actually this guy, I think his tank was probably a mixed reef. And that's when it becomes a bit more difficult, I guess.
Yeah.
It's not that acros are easy at all, but if you're giving yourself extra challenges like trying to run them next to soft corals, apart from zoas, then makes it harder, I guess.
The biggest issue I have is that the way the systems are designed, I only have one flow at one end of each of the tanks. So I don't have a power head on the other side. So all my flow comes from one direction. And it's obviously, with the MP40s, and they're set to create like that sort of flow. If you see what I mean. Yeah. Now, the strongest light is in the middle of the system. So the acros are in the very middle of the top tray where the strongest light is. The problem with that is all the other corals are in front of them. So you can't give them the best flow and the strongest light, if you see what I mean.
Right, okay.
So I thought I had everything covered with these systems, so I would be able to grow anything.
Yeah.
And it just is. I can't imagine how difficult it must be. Like I've done it, I have done it, and it is difficult. But having a mixed reef tank is so much harder than just having just one setting up for one specific coral.
Yeah, okay.
It's like I know you had issues in that tank with the torch coral, didn't you, where it changed color?
Yeah.
And I have no doubt that the reason it changed color was probably because of getting so much light, or because of maybe the nutrients.
Yeah, that's it. Because actually, so this I didn't get it from you. I got it from the Ocean Project, and they've got two systems. One is for LPS, one is for SPS.
Yes.
And the LPS gets a lot less light.
Yeah.
And so it went in my tank, and it still looks nice, but it lost all its colours. I've still got the two that I got from you in a really low light tank to my left.
Yeah.
And they're doing great. They're looking much better.
Well, what can I say?
But that's just because I sourced them from the right place. So.
Yeah. It is. If I set a tank up again, which I will be doing, because I do miss having one in the house to look at. But,
yeah.
The coral farm has ruined fish tanks for me.
Ah.
It's too easy. So to go back to siphoning water out and like having to go with a barrel and pour it in or whatever, it's no fun anymore.
Well, actually, I'll come on to that because I've got a load of questions about that. But just on the point of the flow. So on my tank's a Peninsula, of course, and it looks messy with power heads at the other end. But it came to the point where I needed more flow. So I've now got two MP40s either end. Yeah. And that makes a big difference. Do you just not want to have MP40s? Why don't you have them at both ends?
It partly is because of the ability to get the electrics to that area. Because obviously all the electrics are in the roof.
Okay.
And then they run down the wall, and then to the two bits. I've got like dry whiz with the MP40 dry side in.
Yeah. Okay.
And to go through all that effort to then put it on the other side. I did it for aesthetics reasons, so I could see everything, and it was clearly. Now I did work out a way because you can solve any problem basically by just moving different corals into different positions.
Right.
So Palytotoxin does not need as high flow as some of the other corals. The Palytotoxin gets the least flow of all my SPS corals, which is unusual because usually the thick clumping corals can tolerate a higher flow.
Okay.
But all my Palytotoxin are down the end, and they all grow and they all do fine. They just grow with a different growth pattern, so they become less clumpy and more like pointy, which makes them easier to frag.
Okay.
So it's actually beneficial for me.
It's good. Yeah, accidentally it's worked out that way. Yeah. What SPS corals do you sell the most of?
People love Montipora. Hystrix. People love Hystrix. Stereatopora. Stylophora. All the really common pieces.
The typical beginner corals. Yeah.
They cost, I don't know, £14 or 10. Well, I can't remember what they are. They're all different. Those are the bits that people they want to test their tanks with. There are obviously a select group of people that will pay £100 for a frag of brightly coloured coral, which you're one of those people, which most people will put in their tank and then it doesn't look like it did in the shop anymore. It turns brown. But I sell a ton of just normal stuff, and that's fine.
It's funny because you've said that before, and I would have thought because I sell corals from time to time, and I always think, no one's going to want the basic stuff. They're going to want all the quirky, expensive stuff that might have come from America originally or whatever. But actually, the reality is, you sell Xenia and Monty and all the simple stuff.
Yeah,
more than anything else.
I saw in the chat a minute ago, someone was saying to me, "How big is your green star polyps frags?"
Yeah,
it's like the green star polyp frags are quite a big piece. They grow quickly. There is definitely a trick to all the people that are listening. If you buy from my channel, from my website, and I shouldn't tell you this, if you see corals in my videos, which I have a ton of, especially zoas, how many people would have bought zoas from me? Probably like 5% of people actually get what they bought. So they might buy one head and they'll get 10 turn up because it's just beneficial for me to get rid of those 10, if you see what I mean. So it's like a trick. People, you said this to me, people almost always get exactly what they're expecting, I believe, or better.
Yeah, exactly.
And look, you never know, someone might come in the comment section now saying it was rubbish, but as far as I know, I've only ever had one complaint in all the time. So look, I've had corals die in the post. I've sent over 3,000 corals. I reckon I probably lost 15. So, which, if you think about percentage-wise,
that's minute, isn't it?
It's tiny, it's insignificant. And sometimes, and it's very rare to lose an entire box. So I saw the post, I think was in the chat a minute ago. I had a jelly bean chalice, they're 350 pounds. Yeah.
Right.
And I shipped it on Tuesday. And so it was meant to arrive on Wednesday. It didn't arrive on the Wednesday. And the Thursday was the Queen's Jubilee bank holiday. So it didn't arrive on Thursday. It didn't arrive on Friday. It arrived on Saturday, and it was still alive. And I still alive to this day. The guy sends me pictures. But what I said to him immediately, don't worry, don't lose any sleep over it at all, because whatever happens, I'll send you another piece, or I'll give you your money back, whichever you want. Or I'll drive it down to myself.
350 quid jelly bean,
It doesn't matter. Like, I have heard of some people where they will fight with people over DOA, like if something dies or things like that. The reality is, if I upset someone, they won't come back. I'm giving away too many secrets now, if you see what I mean, because people will abuse this potentially. But I never want anyone to leave with a bad experience. I want everyone to leave with a positive experience, because I'm in this not just for a week or a month. I'm in this for hopefully the rest of my life. The only thing that will stop me doing this is if something happens where corals get banned, or you see what I mean. It's more like it would be something totally outside of my control. So if all of a sudden Indonesia wasn't bringing any corals in, there was no Indonesian corals and no Australian corals, we have a problem.
Yeah.
So
that's absolutely right as well, because there are two shops that I won't name, but two shops in the country, which is a small percentage, that I've had issues with, in that I've just had bad service, and I just there was one thing I bought a bottle of food additive, the stuff you put in with your mysis shrimp to give it omega-3 and all that stuff.
Yes, yeah. It's like a little blue bottle, isn't it?
It's Tropic Marin. I can't remember what it was. I bought it, and the stuff that arrived was different, and I was like, "This isn't the same thing. What's did you just send me it by accident?" And instead of just saying, "Oh yeah, don't worry, send it back," or whatever, he was arguing with me, and I was like, "You sent me the wrong thing. I'm not angry. I'm not having a go. These things happen, but and I haven't bought from them since. So, but it does make a difference. The little things stick with you. So it's just, and you just do all the basics right. You've got good customer service. You look after people, and it's just cool. So.
Yeah, I try my. So I worked obviously in a customer facing role for probably 13 years now, and dealing with very, very high end clients. Where if you lost a client, you could lose £600,000 worth of work like that. It's literally like that. And I treat those people exactly the same as I treat every single one of the clients who buys coral from me.
Interesting.
Okay. I'm not always brilliant at this. So when someone orders a coral from me, I then come back. I then email them to arrange a date. And usually I will email them within, very quickly, within 15, 20 minutes. Sometimes you just have enough. You see what I mean? And you just want to just put your phone down, and then I'll deal with it first thing the next morning. But it's more often than not. So I feel anxiety now because I've had two people order things while I'm sitting here, and obviously they must know I'm doing this. And I just saw someone a minute ago saying, are there any mystery boxes available? I will explain them. We'll come back in a minute, Adam. Basically, so there is a discount code on the website. I'll just deal with it now. There's a discount code on the website for 20% off today. And if I leave that on, then on the mystery boxes, if people take 20% off the already heavily discounted mystery boxes, I make literally no money at all. So I always remove the mystery boxes are always available. They're only ever not available if I got a discount code out. So if you want something, Adam, I will sort you one. We'll just have to obviously talk afterwards.
Fair enough. Okay. There's a couple of comments to catch up in the chat. There's other things that I wanted to. I keep making notes because there's questions I want to ask you, and there's things that I'm going to skip back to. But I'll deal with it with a few comments first. So first off, Telegram is in the house. Have you met Jim?
I've never met him, but we have spoken infrequently, like quite a few times. And I would love to meet. I didn't know his name was Jim. I always called him Telegram.
Yeah.
I always thought his name was Graham.
I know. Well, that's the American thing. And so we pronounce that Graham. Americans pronounce it Graham.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, well, anyway. But yes, I would love. And to be fair, he has invited me. He said if I'm ever in the area, I am always welcome to go see him and the Inappropriate Reef, because I believe they live near each other.
Yeah. I've seen them swap in corals and stuff, so they must live relatively close. America's massive, isn't it? So like if you live 100 miles from someone, that's close, whereas over here that's like a million miles. Because you've met a few people from the States, right? You've been to Reef Palooza and all that sort of stuff.
I bet. Yeah, quite a few of the. That's the best thing about the show, is going to meet like-minded people.
Yeah,
it's basically we're quite a reclusive group of people. We don't. The reason we talk to the people at the fish shop, the owner of the fish shop, is because they're usually our only other fish friend.
Yeah,
if you see what I mean. So we want to go there to talk to someone about fish. Well, to go to an event where there's 2,000 people, I think, over the whole weekend, all in one room, it's like you can't talk about fish enough. By the end of it, you want to talk about fish never again. But there's a great atmosphere. Everyone's really friendly. It's like, because all of these people from all different walks of life, some people will be incredibly rich and some people will be like not rich, if you see what I mean. But they all meet and join each other over this thing, and they're people from different races and cultures, and it's just, that is what I loved about it, because I spent time with people that in my normal life I would never ever spend time with.
Yeah.
And you all instantly bond. It's like you're instantly friends. You don't get that anywhere else.
Because there aren't many. There's a small hobby, isn't it? And so you don't come across many people who are into it. So when you do, it's like, oh yeah.
I think Red Sea told me, I think this was probably 4 years ago now. I think this is correct, that there are 1 million people in the hobby worldwide, which is not that many. If you think about it. And the majority of them are obviously in America. I believe China's a big place for it. And I think we're the second largest place. And then Australia, I think, is after that.
So in terms of my audience, most people are from America. Then it's the UK, and I do get a lot from Australia. Germany, I get quite a lot of views from Germany.
Yeah, Germany too. Yeah, that's true.
And I get people from Germany telling me to slow down because I talk too fast.
You think people don't even watch me from Germany? They can't understand any of it.
But what was I going to say? Oh yeah, so someone asked about GSP. There's loads of people asking, basically treating this as a live coral sale, and actually Jay's Real Reef was asking if you do that. Do you ever do because Tidal Gardens do the live coral sales? Have you got any plans to do that?
The biggest issue for me is that in that room, there's hardly any internet. You can just about get internet. And I have an internet booster, which is it's not far because the house and obviously the garage are next to each other. But it just, for whatever reason, it can't get through all the insulation. So I think there is a way where you can do it where it goes through the electric plugs. But the internet in here is the coral farm's got a completely separate electrical system to the house. So the internet that is plugged into the house, there is no way to do that, to put it into the coral farm. So to do it, I have to start with an entirely new internet. I have to buy a whole new internet.
Fair enough. So not likely to happen.
Not likely, unless I find someone. This is the great thing about YouTube. People in the comments all of a sudden go, "Have you ever thought about this?" And then you do it, and it works.
Yeah.
But no, Jay, you should come down. Like other famous people, and come see me.
It's well worth a visit, to be honest. It's it's. I mean, Jay's up in Sheffield, I think, or Derbyshire, so it might be a bit of a trek. But if you're within 100 miles of the south, where are you? It's somewhere around, not far from Brighton. Where is it?
Yeah, it's not far from. I like to be a bit mysterious where exactly it is.
Sussex.
I don't want people like you turning up.
No, exactly.
I'm about 15 minutes from Horsham.
Horsham, okay, so not far. So Ryan asked, and the reason I want to ask about this is, so Ryan's asking about a Raja Rampage chalice that he's bought from you. Have you still got Raja Rampage?
Yeah, I've still got it. As I said, I keep both things.
Right, okay. Have you got it on your website?
There's one piece, I think, on the website at the moment.
I would advise anybody watching this who wants a nice coral, buy Raja Rampage. It is awesome. It looks
well, you would know. Buy Ryan's Raja Rampage.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Buy Ryan's last piece of Raja Rampage. It's awesome.
But I do have a Carnley, which is sort of like that size at the moment. But I do have just one frag left. I had 3, and the other 2 sold instantly. This is what happens sometimes. You will instantly sell corals on one day, and then you don't sell any of the same coral for weeks.
Do you know what? I think I saw this I went looking on your website the other day. Is it 90 quid?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that because I thought that. So I paid 150 quid from another hobbyist, probably about 2 years ago now. But and it was slightly bigger than your frag. But I saw your frag and I was like, that's actually quite cheap for in the UK. That's not a common.
Well, today there's 20% off, so it's even less than that.
There you go.
We'll buy it now.
But anyway, I'll try not to make this live stream a sales pitch, basically.
Oh no, I don't mind at all.
I know you don't mind. But the other coral I wanted to ask about was GSP. So I'm setting up a nano tank, a little Fluval Evo, and I just want it's going to be mostly LPS, but I want a little rock covered in GSP. I'm gonna put it on its own island and hope it doesn't spread, which it probably still will do anyway.
Is this where you're doing the influencer thing where you go, oh, Ryan, I really want this thing. When is it going to turn up for free in my post?
Well, that would be saving about 15 quid for a GSP.
Yeah,
so if I'm going to do that, I'll be doing it with a torch or something. But
I have two different types of green star polyps. One of them is absolutely really, really nice. It's better than other green star polyps I've seen. It's got really long, like each stem is really long, so sometimes they're quite short. And the other one that I've got is really spindly. It's like someone has just put an order in on the website. Let me just say.
Is it the Raja Rampage? I want commission.
No, someone bought the jelly bean chalice.
Oh, really? You've got jelly bean chalice? Oh, I missed that. Anyway. GSP. Anyway.
Don't you worry, I got another piece for you if you want it. It's not on the website anymore, but yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for the Raja Rampage to go now.
Yeah. But the GSP then, so because I'm sure there are different, not species, different varieties of GSP. They're not all the same. I'm sure they're different because some are brighter than others and that. So the ones that you've got, is it like proper bright or?
Yes, really, really bright. I was actually surprisingly impressed when I got it. It came from another hobbyist, and I was really, really, I was really impressed.
All right. Well, I'll buy a frag off you, and I'll pay full price.
Oh, full price! It's I'm sure we'll be able to sort something. Although you did rob me on the corals I bought from you, didn't you?
What cost did you buy? Yeah, obviously, yeah. Pulled your pants down.
Yeah. That's a joke, anyway. So everyone was listening.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll move on. But GSP. I'm sure there are different varieties, and I want the toxic green. I hate when corals are called toxic green, whatever. But that kind of thing. That's what I'm after. So
yeah.
And there we go. It was Reef Rookie was asking. I've just seen GSP on your website. How big is the piece? And I don't want this to be like an admin sales chat, but
it's big enough. Let's put it this way: it's big. It's bigger than a frag plug. So it depends which piece you want, because as I said, this is one of those corals where I have an incentive to get rid of it because it grows so quickly. So as soon as it starts growing into other things, I want to get rid of the bigger piece and keep the smaller piece, if you see what I mean.
Yeah. So if you buy a frag, you'll get more than you expected. So
usually, yeah.
You said about the best-selling corals earlier, and this was a question I've been trying to find again. What's the worst coral on your farm, and have you got anything you can't sell?
I always sell everything. Is the honest answer. This is what I realized. There is someone out there that will buy the weirdest, randomest pieces from me. I think one sec. I think someone just bought the Raja Rampage. There you go.
Hey!
From now on, every coral sold, there'll be a percentage will go to Alex for his we're gonna get him a toupee. So
someone sent me, someone sent me a link, an Amazon link. You can get a baseball cap with like a wig built in, really long hair, and it looked like Ryan from BRS.
Oh yeah. I think you
desperate
could
one day to buy it and pretend to be in, but anyway.
You could pull that off. Going back to your question about the worst coral in the farm.
Yeah.
There are corals which come in sometimes, so I don't put every coral on the website.
Okay.
Which is so I've had I sold my very first coral which I ever imported about a week ago, and it was a hammer coral, and I'd had it. I kept it sort of sentimental value, but one of my very, very good customers wanted it, and then I went, okay, fine, you can have it. But I kept it for, as I said, 2 years, just because it was specifically my first box, and it was a wall hammer, so it's not one of the ones that you can frag or see what I mean. It was, but I have some. What are they? What are the non-photosynthetic corals? Sun coral. I got some sun corals.
Oh yeah, okay.
Which I bought just for a sort of just give it a go, just to see what I like. And I have sold one of them. I've got I think 4 of them, but they're not on the website because I can only get a picture of the sun coral if I go in there at 11 o'clock at night. Because during the day it's closed. All day, every day it's closed. And the hassle for me to go in there at 11 o'clock at night, which is not a big hassle, distract all the fish, turn all the lights on, if you see what I mean. If people come in and they see it, then that's why it's worth coming to visit, because you will see stuff that's not on the website.
Well, the other thing, so the torches I bought off you as well, I saw them on your video. You did a video where you were just talking about, as you do, sharing around the farm. This is the new stuff I've got in, and I was like, I want them. So like, I thought someone was going to beat me to it because I saw your video like 10 minutes late. But I bet you must get other people doing that, because it's like you just see stuff that's in the background or whatever, and
literally all the time. If in fact anything, I encourage it because it's beneficial to me. If you see something in my video and it's not on the website, I have to take pictures of it and create a web page and the description and to put it on there. Whereas if you go, can I have this? We can sort out a different way, if you see what I mean. And so it's I get through the process much quicker for exactly the same result.
Yeah.
So it benefits me if people do that.
Fair enough. I was looking down. I've sorted your LPS corals by price high to low. I was going to see if I could find one that I could get the most expensive one sold. But
I don't know what. I think the most expensive one on there is probably a fungia at the moment. I think
there's a couple of nice fungus actually. There's the second most expensive one I think is nicer. It says it's described as orange and purple fungia. Do you know the one? Let me put it up on the screen.
I think I do know which one.
Here we go. It's this one.
Yeah. I think. See, this picture was taken originally. You can see on the top right corner, there's a little nick out of it, and that's the only. I think that's probably the reason that hasn't sold. Although you might not even notice it.
No, I hadn't. That must have recovered by now, though, right?
Yeah. Well, I believe they take a little while. It's obviously it's not getting less. It was like that when it arrived.
Oh.
There have been some crazy corals that coming in. I don't know why this is. Before, I only ever saw green trachyphyllias. Never saw anything. And like a pink one or a red one was like £350 or something. And all of a sudden, I've got like 12 of them. If you see what I mean. It's like
you bought like a job lot. You bought like the world's supply of trackies.
When I found out that you couldn't get hold of them anymore, or they were become very difficult because obviously they were. I think a lot of them were coming from Australia. I have bought 80 of them.
80?
I bought 80.
Oh, I thought you had like 20.
No, I bought 80 of them. I think I've always got, at the moment, I think I might have, I don't know, 15. Even the trackies. There's trackies that are on the website, and there's trackies that are not on the website at the moment. I like to keep them, because if I just sell them all in one go, it's like, it's not exciting, is it? It's like, I want it, in a couple of months' time. I want people to go, "Well, bloody, I haven't seen a trackie in ages," and also
Okay.
well rested, and I love trackies, so I like looking at them.
Yeah, well, this is the bonus for you. If you've got a nice coral that doesn't sell, you get to look at it all the time.
Some of the trackies are like you must have seen that grafted trackie where it's half green and half purple.
Yeah.
And it's a natural graft. It happened in the wild, and even the skeleton is, you can see a clear divide between the skeleton of the trackie. So it's that's a piece I'm keeping. Although so many people have asked to buy that.
I bet, yeah, and but that's the benefit of going down there and seeing you. You get
That's also the biggest problem for me. So many people come and they go, "Can I have this piece?" And I've got a really nice jawbreaker mushroom which I've had for 2 years. They don't start producing babies for 2 years, and everyone wants to buy it. And I've kept it for 2 years so I can keep, if you see what I mean, so I can grow
yes,
it.
you can frag it, and
But everyone wants it.
And there's nothing worse than when you go into a shop. How much is that? It's not for sale, mate.
Well, it happens all the time for me because people, there's something about rarity. So if people see only one piece of a coral, they want to buy that one piece. If there was 6 pieces of that same coral, they wouldn't want to buy it.
It's so funny, and I'm a complete sucker for that. But yeah, you're absolutely right. There's a couple of questions I'm gonna catch up with as well. So, do you have pest and control or quarantine procedures? And I'm asking this partly because I know you have quite extensive dipping and all that sort of stuff. But what do you do?
Okay, quarantine is virtually impossible for a coral farm because to quarantine corals properly, you need to it takes months to do. So it isn't financially viable to do. What I have always said is I am doing more than most people. So every coral that comes in, it gets properly inspected by me, each with glasses, like magnifying glasses, so I can see. You can see them in my videos sometimes.
Like a mad professor.
With a little light on them. It takes me hours. So a box of corals might have 15, 20 corals in, and I can be processing that box for 4 hours sometimes, because it is in my interest to not let pests get in the system.
Yeah.
For 2 reasons. Firstly, I don't want to have to deal with them. Secondly, it's about reputation. So if all of a sudden everyone goes, "I got this from Prestige Reef," it goes around like wildfire. There are other places where people go, that I know of, have certain issues. And the only reason I know they have certain issues, despite the fact I've never been there, is because I've been told by someone else, if you see what I mean. And I don't want that for me. And the other thing is, the YouTube channel keeps me accountable. So whereas some other people, you don't see their tanks, so you have no idea what condition the tanks are, the coral's coming from. Everyone can see my tanks all the time. So if someone's in a video sees something, if you see what I mean, it's just as bad as if they bought it themselves, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
So I have like a double check where all of your eyes are looking for me. That's what I have to do. Every coral comes in, everything gets removed from the frag plugs, everything. So then everything gets dipped. It all gets dipped individually. So I dip them in a small box. You will have seen it on Instagram, and it will put in 6 corals in that box. And people have asked me, why don't I just dip them all in one go? Well, once you start dipping them, you dip them for 15 minutes, and then obviously you take the corals out and put them in the tank. Well, if I've got 6 corals to look at, I'm far more likely to do a proper job than if I've got 20 corals to look at, if you see what I mean. So it's every part of the process is all about trying to help you and help like the end user, and also try and help me, because if something, let's say I get Montipore eating nudibranchs or something like that, if they eat my coral, they are eating my profit, if you see what I mean. So that's why I have so many wrasse, because and I don't have one type of wrasse. Every tank, or like that, I'm using that. So some tanks will have a Melanaris, and some tanks will have a different type of a very similar Melanaris, if you see what I mean. And some will have a silver belly or a yellow or a canary wrasse, if you see what I mean. But every tank has a 6-line, a Melanaris of some sort, a possum wrasse of some sort, and usually 1 or 2 canary wrasse, or silver belly. because one wrasse won't eat everything.
No.
So if you have a whole range of mouths that are all willing to eat different things, you cover yourself for everything. And then obviously every tank has a Copperband as well. Fraptasia.
Yeah, okay, Fraptasia. And you're the king of Copperbands because you've just you put them in your tank and they're fine, like instantly.
Look, I have a different problem. Copperbands eat coral. They definitely eat coral. And it's not every coral and it's not every Copperband, but I can 100% certainty tell you that they love acants and they love Trachophilia.
Yeah, so my Copperband ate. I never caught him, but I'm as sure as I can be that he ate my green acants. Weirdly, it was just one colony. They were doing fine for years. I put him in, and then suddenly, over the course of a couple of months, they just started disappearing. And I'm certain it was him.
So sometimes I have to move fish on to other. I swap them around in different tanks, but even that comes with a risk, especially with Copperbands, because obviously all the tanks that are in the tanks deal with any algae. They're all aggressive and territorial, even in a big system. Okay. So if I put a Copperband, which is like gold dust because it's eating, into a tank with a load of tanks, and all of a sudden all the tanks go, you know what, we're going to kill this fish. It's better for me to let someone else have it and go, look, this eats acans. If you don't have acans, you'll be fine, if you see what I mean. I had one that ate Sophastria, but it only ate one type of Sophastria.
That's weird.
And I've even had one that eats Leptocerus. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not like a fleshy coral. Leptocerus is like a rock.
The fleshy ones are the ones I would have thought are at risk, but Cyphastria and fair enough. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Fish are weird. There was actually one last question that I missed from the members' questions.
Yeah.
From Bubbly Reef. Can you ship to France?
Since Brexit, I cannot ship to France. Before Brexit, I could have done, but unfortunately, it's not an option for me.
Yeah, I used to buy stuff from Eurocorals in Germany, and I can't anymore. They said they were trying to work on something after Brexit, and I was like, well, I'm not really sure how that's going to work, but that was 2 years ago. I asked them, and still nothing. So I'm guessing the paperwork is just not too difficult or expensive or whatever.
At the very beginning, you asked me a question, and it was about what it was like to set up the coral farm. And obviously, I spent a huge amount of money building this, and you just reminded me because of Brexit. And basically, for someone to build this room, it would cost them 50 grand. That's what it costs, basically. And I was buying corals at the time from Europe, because no wholesaler in the UK would deal with me because I wasn't a shop, which I understand. I understand why that's in place, and I don't have an issue with that. And then 2 weeks after the farm was fully up and running for the first time, Brexit happened, and that was it basically. So imagine spending that much money, and all of a sudden, where you were getting the corals from was taken away from you.
Yeah.
That was the lowest point. You asked me what the lowest point was. That was the lowest point, because I went, what do I do? What do I do? Someone came forward, an importer came forward, and they said, look, we'll help you. And to this day, even though I have other avenues of coral now, every single time they send out a list, I buy a box without fail, every time, because they looked after me at the very beginning when no one else would. And that meant so much to me.
That's wicked.
There was actually
that sort of thing buys you, and you now take care of them because they looked after you. So
there was literally a time when they had a box that was spare, and they said literally no one else was. I said, what were you going to do? Because they said no one else will take it, and I just went, I don't need this extra box, but I'll take it because you help me, I help you. That's how this works. So, and I will never ever forget that they did that for me, because it felt like I was really up against it. And if anyone wants to start a coral farm, start a shop. Start a shop, because then you have access to everything, if you see what I mean. Whereas I tried to do it without doing that.
Yeah, okay. So I've been asked a couple of times if I'd do that. But the idea of starting a shop just seems so much hard work and so much risk. I can't think of anything that I'd at least rather do.
Yes, it becomes, you have to be there between 8 and 6. I understand why the rules are in place.
Yeah.
And for anyone who does it, as I said, one of my best friends owns a fish shop. For anyone who does it, fair play to them, because they're like, it is not easy. It is not. It's definitely not easy. He goes to work all day sometimes, and then he'll come and buy coral from me, because some shops buy coral from me as well. And so he gets to my house, let's say 7 o'clock. Then we pick coral for an hour, so it's 8 o'clock. Then he's got 45 minutes to go back. So by the time you get to his shop unpack, it's 9 o'clock, and he's worked all day, and then he's got to put them in his tanks. So it doesn't look like a fun lifestyle.
No, it looks like hard work, to be fair. So yeah, but it makes it easier for you. Was the point? A couple of other questions I wanted to catch up with as well. So yeah, Telegram says he's 15 kilometers away from Moki,
Yes,
so they do live proper close. Maryland, I think I've just remembered.
Yeah.
And he said you're both welcome to visit. I've thought about going to. I was trying to plan Reefapalooza maybe this in June, is it? I was thinking about that originally, but I just
That's on at the moment.
Yeah. This was a couple of months ago. I was thinking about it. I'd love to do it as much as anything to meet a load of people who it would be cool to hang out with. But
the best one is Florida. That's where the most people go, because that's also where Worldwide Corals is. That's usually in April. I've been to the Florida one twice. Vegas which was Macna, was the best time of my life.
Okay.
It genuinely was the best time of my life. But there's one in August, which is in California, which I'm thinking about going, because I'm having withdrawal symptoms. Because the last time I went was before COVID.
What's the one in California?
It's a Reefapalooza.
Reefapalooza. Okay. It's because the Top Shelf Aquatics is in Orlando as well, or Florida or somewhere.
There's loads of great places in Orlando. Yeah. It's like these shows are like one big party. Everyone goes there. They all meet each other. You don't need to know anyone. You all go out in the evening. You walk down from your hotel room, and someone will grab you and go, "Come with me. Let's go do something." That's why. And the person who grabbed me, who kidnapped me, was Rico.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But Americans are a lot more friendly. We're a bit reserved over here. So if it was the same thing over here, I bet it wouldn't be the same way. But
I had a great night with Rico. It was that was in Vegas. It was a good time, and because I'm quite reclusive, I would have said no. It was only because he gave me no choice.
Kidnapped, basically.
But I had a really, really good time, and I'm glad that I went out that night. So I was in shorts and flip flops in a really fancy hotel restaurant, but it didn't matter.
No, you had a good time. And actually, that segues into the next question I wanted to post, which is there anything that UK reefers wish they had more selection of compared to what's available in the US? And you've been to the States, you've seen what they've got. So what are the kind of differences that you get over there that we don't?
I don't think it's that different.
No, okay.
It's always interesting. The people from America, when they see the corals we have here, they go, "Wow, I've never seen that before." And then when we go there, we go, "Wow, I've never seen that before." The reality is they're coming from the same place. Like they're coming from the ocean. Now America have a much there's a much bigger group of people, so they get some of the best bits. But generally speaking, I think you can get really nice acros here, and you can get really nice acros there. It all depends on how the person's looking after them. If you see what I mean. So yeah, it's just more. It's more. How do I put this? It's the corals are more famous over there. So if a nice coral comes in, I might put it up as just a red acan or whatever. Whereas over there, it'll get a name. It will then a picture will go up, and then 6 months later, that coral is then shown, because then there's some hype. It's brilliant what they've done. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
And there is a certain level of when you get a new fresh coral in and you cut it up and you keep it for 6 months to cut it up properly. There is definitely a value in that. But there's also people also want the other side of things, where they'd rather have the cheaper coral and cut it up themselves, which I think is something that you've done before, isn't it?
I don't tend to. So some people will go into shops and buy brown SPS and buy it to color it up. I don't tend to do that, but I buy from. I'm quite picky, and I buy most of my corals SPS anyway from other hobbyists.
Yeah.
And there's a group of people who I know their tank. I know where they get corals from, and I've seen them, and I know their stuff and all this that I always look out for because they've just got awesome stuff. So, but I don't know. I buy occasionally from shops still, but and actually, Ocean Project gets some really nice frags. But I don't like buying. Well, I don't like buying wild SPS because every time I buy them, they die.
There's definitely something about wild SPS. People don't see this side of the hobby. When a box of coral comes in, some of them are dead. There is no doubt about it. Some of them, you'll get a big colony and it's dead, and then some of them will be a bit ropey, where the water smells a bit funny, but it'll be okay, and then the rest of them will be fine. Strawberry shortcake. I have never, ever been able to get a piece of strawberry cooked shortcake to survive, for whatever reason, from a box from Indonesia. It is always either dead in the box or it's dead or it's dead within a week. I don't know why. I know they like a high flow. They're definitely more a high flow coral. But the thing that I find quite rewarding, and it can also be really not rewarding if it goes the other way, is getting a coral in and coloring it up over a period of time. There is something quite rewarding about that, because when they come in, they're a bit.
It's your skill, yeah.
There is that, but also you don't really know what you've got until you see it, and you're like, wow, when did you? It's a very slow process. So it's not like one day it's brown and the next day you go and you go, oh, well, that looks brilliant. It's like all of a sudden you start to see these little faint hints of color, and you're like, come on, it's doing it.
But so I get that from time to time, and I tend to, because you see it every day. I don't find I notice, and then suddenly I'll be looking for a clip to put on my YouTube video, and suddenly I'll go back 6 months and I'm like, holy, that looks much different. And that's when I start to notice, because you're looking back at old footage and stuff.
It's an incredibly rewarding job for me, not in terms of from the financial perspective, but from, I get exactly the same feeling that you get when you put a little frag in and all of a sudden you start seeing it basing out. Well, I get that times 5,000.
Yeah.
So, because even if they're corals I've had for years, every time I frag them, as soon as you start seeing them grow onto the plug, you're like, yep, that was a success.
Yeah.
I don't believe that all corals need to be on the plugs. They need to be growing on the plugs. Acros, I do. I think acros should be growing on the plugs.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't believe. For example, digitata and things like that, like the red digis.
Doesn't really base that much, does it?
They're very hardy, generally, for an SPS. And the other thing is, the first thing that I tell everyone to do is cut the coral off the plug.
Yeah.
And stick it down. So if it spends 6 months growing out, for the day it arrives for you to cut it off, what was the point? Other than the fact it's obviously more resty. But yes, I talk too much. I'm worried I talk too much sometimes.
No, that's absolutely fine. But there's another question, and this is Kalkwasser. He's pushing the America point. He says, are there any corals from the States you wish were more available over here? For example, Space Invader pectinia.
I have a Space Invader pectinia, which I actually didn't get. It came from one of the wholesalers.
Okay.
Although it's not as yellow as it used to be. When it arrived, it was really yellow. There's a picture, I think, on my Instagram somewhere. And then I think I got it about a month ago, and now that yellow's turned more of like an orangey color.
Okay.
I'm not sure why that is. I've only had one pectinia before in my whole life.
Right.
So I'm not sure what would cause that. But it's quite a big piece. It's sort of like that size.
Okay. So I was about to say Signature Frags have one, because I was looking at it the other day, but they're out, tiny, but still, and 200 quid as well, but it's out of stock, so they've sold it. So you need to get fragging that.
Well, I need to get it back to being yellow.
Yeah.
What happens is there are positives in some respects in terms of when corals do go a color. There's also a negative when the coral changes color, and you're like, why has that changed? Like it is in the SPS tray, but I don't know if I moved it to the LPS, would it change color again? If you see what I mean.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Because the Space Invader pectinia is one I've been after for a while, the thing that puts me off is it's called Space Invader for a reason, and it's going to sting anything within a 10-mile radius, basically.
Is that why it's called that? I didn't know that.
I think so. I think I think so. That might be wrong, to be fair, but I've been looking at that one on Signature Frags, and 200 quid for a small frag. I don't actually. Although it's a lot of money, I don't think that's bad value because it's not. You don't see it very often. But anyway, it's gone. So obviously, other people feel the same.
Bounce mushrooms are the thing that I like. I was really. I became quite well known for them, and I do still have them. But not. I lost my OG, which that was when I say lost, I mean I lost it in the tank somewhere. It's like
it disappeared.
I no idea where it is. It's in the Zoa tray somewhere. And I know it let go because it sort of was like, it was sort of half off the plug, and it was in the flow. It was half, and I just saw it. I went, so I moved it, and the next day it was gone. And I was like, "Where have you gone?"
Yeah.
So I've looked everywhere to try and find it, but it will probably pop up.
Not a coral you want to lose, that is it?
This is so I've got some Electus mushrooms and also some kryptonite mushrooms. This is what I mean by corals go through cycles where I sold loads and loads of Electus mushrooms at one point where they were selling out like this. Every time I put one on, sold. I've now had one on there for ages. It's been on there for so long. It's now got 4 babies. But I will cut those babies off before I do sell it. So don't go and buy it now.
Okay. So there are a couple of questions that I want to ask you about as well. But I've just seen we've had a super chat from Aquarium Cabinet Solutions. Nick Chan, thank you very much. Dorky refund contribution. So I'll go and spend that Prestige Reef obviously straight away.
Nice. You can buy that green star polyps.
Yeah, exactly. And this was one I've seen actually. So apparently you can propagate Homophilia australis, which I think is a scully, right?
Yes,
people know as scully. And this is by cutting the bottom of their skeleton off and a new head will grow on the bottom. What do you think of this? Have you ever tried this? And this comes from Chummingham's Reef, who did a live stream with Devon Reef Dudes recently. And what he does is he cuts off a slice of the skeleton of the base, puts the scully on its side, and then randomly a different color scully will grow on the base that's been cut off. Yeah, apparently. No. So
I do have in the farm. I have a frag scully.
Right.
It was fragged so long ago that it's actually been it's on the website. I got it from a wholesaler, and it has healed up completely. It was done probably 6 months ago. And again, it's because you can't get skies anymore. So the same as with the trackies. All of a sudden, every scholar I could get hold of, I was buying, even the half ones. They just take an awful long time to turn back to normal.
Yeah,
it's like a mutilated scully. But if you can't get them, then buy it. And if you want a round one, then you've got to buy it from another reefer.
That's it. So I bought they're really good recovery projects. So I bought a war paint scully ages ago for 50 quid because it was basically dead. There was very little flesh left, but I knew I could recover it because you just put it in your tank. As long as your tank isn't like in real bad problems, it'll be fine. Feed it and it'll recover. It just takes a long time. And it took about 18 months, 6 months to get to the point where it was looking all right, 18 months or maybe even longer to the point where it looks fine.
Yeah.
So you might argue it's not worth the hassle. But I found that quite satisfying.
And it looks fine, then it's worth it. But I have not had the best. Skies are something I'm not a huge fan of. I've had skies die, and I'm almost certain it's because of too much light. Definitely.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. I got it from the wholesaler, and then a day later it's dead, and that's not a nutritional issue. That's a it's in something it's somewhere it doesn't want to be issue.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's just and then I moved them all to dim light, and then I've never had an issue with them again. So I think they prefer much lower light, but lots of feeding. Yeah.
Okay. And there's another question about America, and the answer to this is firmly no. But is there any way at all for you to bring back coral from the USA? Well, there is actually, but it involves you ending up in handcuffs and staying at Her Majesty's pleasure. So
it's the problem is there's no CITES permits that England have with America. Because America are not an exporter of coral. It's not like Australia, which is just like what they do. So to do it, you are essentially smuggling an endangered species, and they treat it like that, I believe.
Yeah.
So,
But this is I'm hoping that, because at some point now Brexit has happened, the UK can go into trade deals with countries like America, and I was hoping that would happen, and then it would be not easy but easier to do it. But I don't know if that actually would work. But if that ever does happen, I'm up for that.
I have no idea, if I'm honest. I know it's I think with soft corals, I think that there's a way where it's something about you have to take it to a vet to get this is how insane it is, to get a health certificate for each individual. I haven't looked into it properly, but they like so soft corals aren't a CITES coral.
No.
So CITES is only based on coral which has skeleton. And that's what the issue is. But there's also an issue. It was one of the wholesalers in the UK told me this, but I don't know enough to say it's a fact, if you see what I mean. But there's something to do with getting an approval from a vet that says these corals have no pests or whatever, and they're not going to be.
I wouldn't have a clue about it.
Of course, I know, and that's why no one does.
Horse, I don't know.
And you have to declare it that side that you're doing it, or export it, and you have to declare it when you get here. I don't think anyone's ever done it. I just think in theory it might be possible.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Well, so and following on from that, Adam Fox says what he can't find in the UK is Walt Disney. I had a frag of Walt Disney, but it died within a day of moving it into my tank. I probably gave it too much light. But I also have a frag of what's the other one? Home Wrecker. They were sold to me as those corals, and my understanding is that they are the genuine, the real article. But if that's correct, then that means someone's brought them over here. Well, it means one of two things: either someone's brought them over here in a suitcase, like in a flask or something, illegally, or it's being brought in legitimately from Indonesia, and actually it's not technically a Jason Fox Walt Disney. But it's the same coral. It's just it's not the you know what I mean. It is the same coral. It's just not it's not got that name.
So basically, when you get a box of corals from Indonesia, it's not unusual to get a tenuous in that box, and that's what it is. That's what they're just. I believe they're taking for a tenuous, aren't they?
Yeah.
So, and when they come in, they're sort of a bit brown. If you color it up, it probably will look almost the same. If you see what I mean. So there's a lot of people who are selling corals which are certain things that aren't necessarily those things. If you see what I mean.
I've bought a couple of times as well. I've bought corals that I'll talk to the and it's the Ocean Project, and I know Sean. I've known him for a few years now, and I trust him. And there are the times when he'll say, "I can't tell you that this coral is a Merlin Staff or whatever, because that it didn't come from America. It came from Indonesia. But I can tell you unofficially, I can't sell it as that, but it's the same coral."
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I get it all the time when tenuous come in. And you're like, oh yeah, that looks fancy. You know what's interesting? When they come in as full carnies, which are like sort of like this.
Yeah.
So in those little frags people are buying them for 150 pounds. Well, the money is that you have to make it look like that coral, if you see what I mean. And the only way you can do that is take care of it for 6 months. It doesn't come out of the box looking like that.
Yeah.
It takes a long time to get it to that level. So the chances are do you think there's only one Walt Disney acro in the wild? There's not. There'll be thousands of them. There'll be a whole huge colony.
Yeah.
Yes, acres of them. It's just that it was named and colored up in that area. And it was interesting. Sometimes you can get a coral, which will be one color, and as you know, it will be a completely different color, and you can sell it as two different things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, the coral that I sold to you that went green.
Yes, perfect example.
No idea why. Still healthy and growing, but it's just different. It's weird. It's just one of those things. There's actually. Sorry.
I've still got it. It's still growing.
Yeah. There you go.
It's just much smaller.
Yeah. There was a follow-up question on you talking about soft corals. So Bubbly Reef says a guy in France sells compositions, either zoas or LPS. Is there any reason not to get something like that?
You still can't do it. Legally, you can't do it.
You can't. So you can't even import soft corals from Europe.
But you can't import anything without permits from Europe.
So that CITES thing is you still need a permit for a zoa or whatever.
Yeah, because it's you need a permit for bread from anything that comes from there now. You need some sort of permit for. So the thing that is, I think the animal side of things probably suffered the. Well, look, I don't know this because obviously it's the only thing that affects me directly. I think it did. We did suffer because of that, because of Brexit. Whether it's this or even other exotic animals, because it becomes much harder to get anything that's animal related because of all the process that goes through customs.
Yeah.
So
the thing that bugs me about the American situation is that I'd like that with endangered species, yeah, fair enough. We don't want to be importing polar bears and keeping them in our garden as pets or whatever. But well, a little one would be cool, to be fair. But
I've always wanted a serval. I've literally my entire life never even had
a little cat, isn't it? Like,
it's not a little cat; it's a big cat.
Well,
but I've always, my entire life, I've wanted one, and I could have got one from Europe reasonably easily. They're a terrible idea, and I don't actually want one. But I just, as a kid, I wanted one.
There's a cat called there's one that's like it's that sort of thing, a Bengal. Have you seen a Bengal cat?
Yeah, that's just a cat.
Yeah. But they're still. But so this for those of you who don't know what a serval is. Here we go. It's going to bring up the picture. That's a serval, and you want one of these.
I know exactly what I would need to do, how much they cost, where I'd get one from. You need a dangerous wild animal license. I know it. I've done full research. I know. I genuinely really want one, but they're a terrible idea.
And if you get one, remind me not to come to the farm.
It's going to be a little guard cat.
Yeah, exactly.
I can leave all the doors open, and the cat can roam around. But it's you do get hybrids between house cats and servals, which there's a fish shop that the owner has 2 of them. It's near Northampton. The guy, I can't remember what it's called. But yeah, he's got 2. He's got 2 hybrid servals.
I don't like the idea. I don't like the sound of that. That scares me.
Yeah.
Because my cat, if I annoy him and he like scratches me, that's bad enough.
Yeah.
So if it's half African wild cat that weighs like 50 kilos.
I like how we've gone off track, haven't we?
I know, yeah. This is serval talk now. But anyway, let's go back to questions. So there was one thing you talked earlier about, setting up a tank and that you're considering doing it. But if you're into big tanks, aren't you? So it'd have to be massive.
Yes.
When are you going to set up a tank? When can we see it?
I don't do this. So I'm actually paying for the tank with coral, which sounds insane, but I actually am. So a fish shop is buying coral from me, but he's just storing up an amount of coral, if you see what I mean, and then eventually we're going to swap it for a tank. Because everything, if you think about it, the farm, the tanks, everything is paid for with coral.
Yeah.
In some form or another. I don't know when I'm going to do it. I need to have the motivation to do it. Now, the reason, so obviously I had the Red Sea tank, and there was nothing wrong with the tank. There was nothing wrong with the process. I followed everything exactly, but our tanks are very personal to us. So people come to me and they say, "Can you, what coral should I buy?" And I go, "Don't be lazy. Pick your own coral, because they're our tanks. I can't make you feel about your tank if I'm the one doing it, if you see what I mean." But so when I was working obviously with Red Sea for a period of time, I was very I had to put out a certain number of videos in a specific time frame, and I rushed everything. I put a load of fish in it, put a load of coral in it. I like to get little frags and grow things over a period of time, so I get that enjoyment. Whereas just to fill it up, it lost the joy for me. And it was also a 4-foot tank, and to go from 1,000 litre to what is essentially, I think it's like a 300 litre display, it's much smaller, obviously. I would get a 6-foot water box is what I plan to get, and I put a lot of research into all different things, or different tanks that I would look into, where I get one custom made or possibly a cage aquarium. But I've come to the conclusion that I think that I like the water boxes the most.
It's funny because I love my Red Sea tank, and the new Gen 2s look really good as well. But if I was going to buy a new tank, it'd be a water box as well.
I was spoiled. So the 1,000 litre tank was secondhand. Every single tank I've ever owned before the Red Sea one was secondhand. I'm a big I tell everyone to buy everything secondhand, basically.
Yeah.
Because you don't know how long you could be in the hobby for, especially if you're first getting into it.
Sure.
And the person who designed it did an amazing job with the sump. It was very simple. There was no like water goes from this section to this section. It was literally just here, 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 here. And it just went through like that. And there was a load of room, so I could have a 75-litre RO barrel, which I only had to fill up once a week. The Red Sea RO, the barrel I could fit in there, I had to fill up every 4 days.
Yeah.
And then you forget to fill it up.
Yeah.
Do you have this? You have a bigger tank than
so I didn't like. So actually, I much the Red Sea sumps I think are wicked, and I really like the Red Sea layout. But I hate the RO, so the freshwater reservoir. So pretty much straight away I took it off, and I commissioned a glass tank that holds like enough for it to last 10 days basically. So and I have that outside of my tank because so
10 days is perfect.
Yeah. Because then it's not too much, but for every 4 days, and the trouble is because it sits quite high in the cabinet.
Yeah, it does.
Actually, filling it up is really difficult.
Yeah. So I like to have a schedule. So every Monday I'll do this, and every Tuesday I'll do this, and for whatever reason, for years I always filled up my RO on a Sunday for the 1,000-litre tank. So to have a tank that only lasts for 4 days. It would, and so because it changes each week, so it's not like you do it every Monday and every Sunday. 4 days, obviously, the day moves back a day each time.
So you can't remember.
Crazy.
Yeah.
That was the only downside to that tank. Genuinely, other than that, I thought I didn't see any issues with them at all. I was very happy.
Which water box would you get? If 6 foot one, which one?
It's got to go in my kitchen. The problem is when you have this house is really, really well insulated. And when you have a tank in here, there is definitely a different, you can sense the difference in humidity level. Definitely.
Yeah.
And I don't like that. I like it to be quite fresh. So this is the other thing that's putting me off. I want to I'll get like some sort of ventilation put in so that I don't have to have that, if you see what I mean. Because obviously my father's company is a ventilation company. So it kind of works well, if you see what I mean. But so I've got big enough room for a 6 foot. Will a 6 foot be too big for the room? Technically, yes. So it's like, do I get it because I want it and it will look odd, or do I get a 5 foot and it's going to be exactly the same problem I had with the 4 foot where I didn't feel like it was big enough?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to make a suggestion. This is the water box. This is the LX. It's 6 foot, but it's 30 inches, 2.5 foot front to back.
It comes out really wide, doesn't it? Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I love that.
They're a lot of money though, aren't they? They're like
3,000. Oh, and they're more than that.
I know, maybe more than that.
Yeah. That's part of the reason I got the Red Sea Peninsula, because it's 24 inches wide, and it's got no weir box in the way, so there's loads of space for scaping, and it looks wicked. And 24 inches wide. It's just so. I don't like the narrower tanks that are 18 inches wide, because it just means you've got a really steep rock, so it's harder to place corals and all that. But 2 foot front to back is just wicked, and 30 inches front to back, that's my dream.
Well, I will look into it. I see the tank at the moment; it fits perfectly in line with the wall.
Yeah.
So if I have that one, it will stick out. So, and if it's going to be that big already, but that's the one I want. That is the one I want.
Is it? Yeah. Okay.
The other thing I've done, so most people would have a table in their kitchen. I've actually, because I never eat at the table, I have a table in the table I'm sitting at, which is in the dining room. And I've put a sofa in my kitchen because in my whole in the whole 15 years, I've got 2 sofas and a coffee table now. I've never ever had anywhere where I can sit and view the tank, ever. The tank was always in the hallway, which means I only ever walked past it, did the maintenance, and that was it. I never sat there and looked at it. And everyone always goes, "Oh, you must spend hours sitting and looking at your tank." I'm like, I spend literally minutes walking past.
Yeah.
So it'd be nice to have somewhere to sit and have coffee in the morning and do it. But the other thing is, obviously, because my electricity is so expensive already, do I want another 6 foot tank?
Yeah, and 6 foot, you'd have lights and heating, and actually, your house is quite well insulated, so your heating wouldn't be so big a deal. But
I've already got everything I need for it because I keep everything. So I've got all my Radion Gen 4s. I got 3 of those from the 1,000-litre tank. I've got the L1 return pumps. The only thing I don't have any power heads.
Okay.
But
Have you
other
any
than that,
interest, because you've got Gen 4 Radeons on your farm, right?
they're
And
Gen 5.
Gen 5. Oh, really?
Yeah. And then the new ones are Gen 6, aren't they?
Yeah. Have you upgraded them? Because you had Gen 4 to start with, right?
No, I've always had Gen 5s on there.
No.
They're the Gen 5, yeah, Gen 5 blues.
Oh, fair. I've mistaken them.
No,
Okay.
yeah. So I keep all the lights and everything from it, because you could sell them, but then eventually you'll always use them again. So
Yeah.
so I've kept my Gen 4 Radeons, and then the coral farm needed lots of small ones rather than big ones to get a better spread.
Do you have your lights really high off the tank? I think you do. I can't remember.
They're not that high. Remember, the water is only 12 inches.
But they're a good foot, or they're not like 3 foot, but I think they're a good foot or so above the
Oh,
water.
yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, because you have to get enough.
Yeah, not like in America where they have it like 3 feet off the surface or whatever.
No.
Yeah.
No, because they're like blinding when you walk in there. You need to wear sunglasses because they're like eye height.
Yeah. That's the one thing with my Kessels. They're wicked, but you can see it's really dazzling, and you can just see out the corner of your eye. It's like bright light, and it's like, I just wish that would stop. But
you're always moaning about your lights, aren't you? Always moaning.
No, I'm a nightmare. I change them myself, and I've seen another. I want to change it again. Yeah, well, so I've got at the moment I've got T5s with 2 Kessel A500Xs and 2 Reef Bite strips, and I found out that there's a thing that there's a bracket that holds 4 Reef Bite strips and 2 Kessels in the middle, and I'm like, oh, that'd look good. I got a price for it the other day.
I think you've got a problem. That's what you have. You have a problem. I don't think I've ever seen anyone who tweaks their likes as much as you.
I know, yeah. I should just leave it, but I just get I get excited. So there was one other tank actually that Scott has mentioned, the DD Reef Pro. Have you seen those?
I haven't. I think AAC have a DD tank, but that was from a really, really long time ago.
They do indeed. So
these are. But I think it's I think they've had it for years and years.
Yeah. So they're all made in the UK, and they're slightly shallower than the normal tanks, and they also have a corner weir box, so it's out of the way, and you don't have to worry about aquascaping space. So they look really good as well.
I don't know how I feel about a shallower tank. Do you know, I like tanks that have it's a bit higher, so the stand a bit higher, so you're not looking down, you're looking into it, if you see what I mean. So
yeah, that's so the thing that my Peninsula, the worst thing about my Peninsula tank is the cabinet is 100 meter tall, and then the tank on top of that is another 60 centimeters. So
yours is too tall.
Exactly. It's like, and I can never see top down unless I go on a step ladder, and I'm 6'1", and I can never see top down. It looks awesome having a big wall of water, but I'd like it to be lower, and I really like the Waterbox Frag series. So they're all like 16 inches tall, I think.
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't want that as my only tank, but I'd love like a shallow kind of one that I can look top down on all the time.
That's why you like when you come here. There's no special trick. You're just
exactly. Yeah, you're just constantly looking down. But we've pretty much reached the 2 hour mark actually, and that's normally the point at which I kind of wrap up. So we'll wrap up in a sec. Is there anything else that you kind of wanted?
You're happy with? So like, I know you said earlier to me, if I want to leave at any point, then I can leave at any point. I'm fine at the moment. So if you want to go, obviously, then go.
I will wrap it up because this is my bedtime basically. Yeah. So and I've got to go to London tomorrow, unfortunately. But yeah. So anything else that we haven't covered about the farm or anything that you wanted to talk about?
I not really. I doubt this will be the last time we do this.
Well, that's good to hear. There's one last question I wanted to ask you actually. I don't think you use Kalkwasser yet. Do you use Kalk?
No.
Do you have any intention? You don't look impressed. You're not interested.
I was thinking this earlier, because I was thinking about things to talk about when I was just cleaning the glass earlier, and it was about the perception of how people view things. So remember I said earlier how everyone thinks the hobby's really hard because we tell them the hobby's really hard. Now, people can have entirely different views on different things in the hobby. So I know, love Kalkwasser. Whereas so you would tell everyone, this is the best thing ever, use it. And I have had the worst experience with it because...
Oh, really?
So I am dyslexic, so I don't read things properly, and I didn't read the instructions properly. And rather than putting in a solution, I put it straight in the tank.
Oh, God.
This was a long time ago. This is when I first started.
Yeah.
And I didn't and the tank went white.
Yeah, I bet.
So I just read the instructions and it said this much per this millimeters, not realizing you're meant to put it in a solution. This was probably 13 years ago.
Yeah.
And I put it directly in the tank, and I went upstairs, and I thought, oh, it'll clear up. You know, sometimes it's a bit murky, isn't it? And then my sister came downstairs, going, Ryan, all your fish are lying down, and I was like, what?
That's not good.
So there are two major events which were issues. That was one of them. Now I know that it works really well for people, but if I told people my experiences with it, they would never use it, would they? Because if I just went, it's rubbish. That's why you have to be really careful who you listen to when it comes to taking advice from people, because you'll say it's great and I'll say don't use it, but I wouldn't really say don't use it, if you see what I mean.
No,
just what I did with it.
I was hoping that was a mistake, but that's still good to know. I was hoping you were going to say you had a problem with like arsenic or some pollution with it, because I'm going to do a video about it at some point, and I'm going to encourage it because I think it is really good. I think more people should use it, but I want to hear all the bad sides, and I want to hear from people who've had bad experiences who can say, look, it's not all sunshine and roses. So
I actually think it. I think it is. I think it is meant to be like that from other people's thing. It's just something. Like when you're younger or like yesterday for some people, and you get too drunk. And then there's this drink that you'll never drink that drink again.
Yeah.
For me, it's Jaeger bombs, because I was like, and I had a bad night, and never again did I ever touch them. That's what it's like for me. If you see what I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I just have a bad feeling. I spent all night pouring vinegar into the tank to lower the pH. So and it literally, I saw the sun go down. And I saw the sun come back up. That's how long it was taking me to deal with this. Doing water change and putting vinegar. And at first it was white vinegar. Then it was white wine vinegar, because mum's a bit of a chef. Then it was malt vinegar. But it kept the fish alive. It was what I had to do, but it worked.
So what was the outcome? Did you lose anything, corals, fish?
I lost some corals. The fish was unbelievable. The fish were lying on their sides like this. And you take them out, put them in a fresh bucket of water, instantly come back to life. It was unbelievable. I'd never seen anything like it.
So because I've never had big pH swings, but that must be the effect that pH has on.
The pH went to 12.
Yeah, bloody hell.
I think it was 12. I think unless it was something went to 12, it might be the alkaline, or whatever it was. It would
have been pH, I bet.
But the purple tang, which was literally lying on, that was the first thing I saw. It was lying on the tank in this cloudy water, like mildly cloudy, because some of it had mixed in at this point, was lying down. I picked it out. I've still got that purple tang 14 years later.
Oh, wicked. Oh, that's cool.
So it's I know you want to go to bed and I talk too much.
No. I always do this. I'm like, okay, I'm going to wrap up. Oh, hang on, one more thing. So, and then I go down to the questions and I ask, like, I stay for another half an hour, but I'm not going to do that. I am going to wrap up.
People don't know this, but Alex has been asking me to do this probably for like 4 months.
At least. And I've been trying to publicly pressure you into it as well.
And then he says, then if I pop it on a live stream, he goes, hey, does anyone want Ryan here? And I'm like, oh, leave me alone. And then he does a poll saying who wants Ryan to come do it. And
the two answers on that were yes or yes. So.
I know. And then and I've been saying no, and no, purely because I didn't know how it would go. If you see, I didn't know how this would work. How I've never done a live stream with 2 people. And then this morning I sent Alex a message going, do you want to do a live stream?
Yeah.
And then almost immediately I tried to get out of it by going, let's do it next week. And you're like, nope, you've said it today.
Yeah, I've got you on the hook. I'm not letting you go now.
And I'm glad. I actually had a really good time and I would do it again.
Wicked. Well, that's good to know. And I had a blast as well. It was 2 hours has flown by. We could have talked for another 2 hours easily.
Yeah.
And we've had, the peak was about 200 people watching, which is normally for this time of year it's about 150. So you are the big call here, and everyone's tuning in to see you. So you're a big seller, and loads of people are saying thanks in the chat, and I think everybody enjoyed it. So
yeah, and you sold Carl for me, didn't you? So,
well, that's the other thing. Yeah. Also, prestige.co.uk.
Hopefully, everyone will now go, now that they finish the live stream, to my website and buy the rest of it.
Exactly, and then you just clear you out completely. So
ideally, yes. Anyway, as I say, I know you want to go. So
all right, well, we'll wrap up there. But thank you everybody for coming along, and a big thank you for Ryan. And yeah, I'll see you all again soon.
Yeah, bye. See you later.